Roadhog has always been a really divisive hero. You see a lot of conversation around the strength of the hero, but more specifically, the strength of his hook. I mean, let's not deny that it's pretty difficult to balance around a mechanic that it basically revolves one-shotting. Sure, we've got characters who can get headshots like Widowmaker and Hanzo, and those are one-shots, but those require aim. And we have McCree's flashbang. You could kind of consider this a one-shot because if he lands it, there's a good chance you're gonna die unless you're a tank. But with Roadhog's hook, it's a pretty easy thing to land, and if it does land, you pretty much guarantee that you're gonna kill your target. So it makes sense that this is an ability that is not easy to balance around, and that's been proven by the continuous overhaul that we've seen for hook. Think about it. We had the initial hook from launch, we'll just call it outright broken. This was the one that had the giant hitbox. It would hook people behind cover, and it wouldn't break if the target left line of sight. And then not too long ago, we had the implementation of Hook 2.0. That added line of sight checks, which resulted in more broken hooks, either not attaching or breaking when they go behind cover. And then they also changed the placement so that Roadhog's targets would always land in front of him. And the thought process here was that Blizzard wanted to balance it for both sides, but still, it hasn't felt right. And there's been a lot of complaints. And so there's been even more changes that just took place, increasing the cooldown of hook, making it so that targets land further away when they are hooked, and then also decreasing the spread of his gun. Roadhog's seen a ton of changes, and it makes sense, because again, it is tough to balance around a one-shot mechanic. Now, recently a thread popped up discussing this very matter, about how hard it is to balance around one-shots, and how Blizzard should maybe consider changing how it works. Principal designer Jeff Goodman came out to respond to that thread, saying, "There was a time where we tried an experiment with him where we allowed his victims to act first when they were hooked. This meant that hooking anyone with an escape button always got away. Overall, this was obviously pretty terrible for Roadhog. If we ever did anything like that to remove a ton of power from his hook, we'd have to change other things about him to make sure he was still viable." Now, later in the thread, it was suggested that Blizzard maybe try changing hook so that it functions more like Junkrat's trap. Maybe remove the stun and allow hooked targets to still fire and use abilities while they're being pulled to Roadhog. And Jeff responded to that as well. He said, "I had thought about this once before, but to be honest, we never actually tried playtesting that version. It'd be pretty easy to try out though. It's probably worth testing and seeing how it feels for both parties." So from this conversation, I get the sense that Blizzard is still mulling over Roadhog and his hook. It's undoubtedly something that's not going to be easy for them to figure out. They've already done several iterations, and clearly they're still considering more options. They're still considering changing how Roadhog works. They've altered his hook a few times. They've now changed the spread of his gun. The placement of targets has been changed and pushed back further. It's tough stuff. And once more, if we compare it to what we'll call other one-shot mechanics that aren't ultimates, by the way, headshots, those are tough to do. Widowmaker and Hanzo, that requires precision to actually land those. McCree's flashbang requires you to be very close to your target, which that can be avoided. And while getting hooked by Roadhog is a matter of positioning, you have to be careful really far away. Like, Roadhog's got quite a significant distance on his hook, so your position has to be on point like 24/7. And anyone who's slightly out of position or ever leaves their Reinhardt barrier is gonna get punished pretty hard. Now, we still have to give some time to the new changes coming through, the fact that his placement is changing, the fact that the spread on his gun is changing, and that the cooldown of hook is being increased. Those are making a significant difference, and we've got to give it time to see how it feels. But it seems pretty obvious from what we see here that Jeff Goodman and the team are still considering more potential changes for Roadhog's hook. And I don't necessarily disagree. I'm not going to sit here and say that I feel Roadhog is overpowered because you can play around him. It is a matter of just making sure you're not close enough to get hit by his hook, or you can break line of sight if his hook does come out, or you have a Zarya on your team, which will now always be able to counter Roadhog's hook with her reduced projected barrier cooldown. And then there's also the fact that he is an ultimate battery. like, he's got such a huge hitbox and so many health points, and you might say that that's in favor of him, but it's actually almost detrimental to his team. Even if he can keep himself alive with healing, he is fueling the enemy team's ultimates. Frankly, whenever I play Soldier, I'm happy when I see a Roadhog on the other team, because all I have to do is keep my distance, and just whenever he pokes his body out, just unload into him. I don't even need to be accurate. He's so easy to hit, and you get your ultimate like that. But even with all of those negatives, he still has the single strongest one-shot kill non-ultimate mechanic in this game. It's not hard to get decent at landing hooks, and if you're decent at landing hooks, you can turn any fight into a 6 vs 5, which on a good team is going to be pretty much a guaranteed win. Even with his drawbacks, his strength is undeniable. I wouldn't be totally adverse though to them just taking a step back and making it, maybe completely overhauling his gun so that he can still hook targets towards him, pull them out of position, but it's no longer possible for him to one-shot them. Maybe his gun has a faster fire rate, gets more rounds so that he doesn't have to reload as often, and just reduce the damage. Maybe make it so that you have to hit 2 shots to kill someone. There's all sorts of things that they could do, and there's no question that with this recent discussion, with all the changes that we've already seen, there's probably going to be more that they'll be changing in the future. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for me here today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, I want to know what you guys think about this discussion, about the potential upcoming changes for Roadhog. Love to know what you guys think. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you have a good one, and until next time, I'll see you later.